So we flirted with rolling into another really charged topic when we were talking about state lines and how, what did you call it? You didn't say they were holy. What did you say they were?
Porous.
Porous, that's right. I want to make a church joke right now, but since we're talking about abortion, I will refrain. And let's move into abortion as a topic. This year especially, it's on the front of a lot of people's minds. Who wants to take the first step? Okay, it's your turn, Jordan.
So, I think...
Concept and then implementation.
Well, and so I'm going to start with implementation of that. We have a very pressing issue as potential state legislators. We owe it to the public to make it clear if, for some reason, the ballot measure that would enshrine in our state constitution a right to abortion, if that were not to pass, or if it were not to be allowed on the ballot, although I believe they just ruled today it will be on the ballot. But if for some reason that does not occur, then in theory, the 1931 law will be the one that's taking effect. And so we owe it to the voters to make it clear, would we want to overturn that law? And absolutely, I would be a vote to overturn the 1931 law and protect a woman's right to make her own medical decisions, because my position in concept here is just that, those pregnancy decisions should not be mandated by the government, and it should remain between the pregnant woman and her doctor. And I'm going to trust the medical community to enforce their Hippocratic standards in order so that way doctors are not doing harm. And if the medical community properly regulates doctors, then there's not going to be any doctors who are performing those truly horrific hypothetical abortions at like 9 months and everything's healthy and all that. Like that, those don't occur. And the reason they don't occur is because there's no doctors that would be doing those. Mm-hmm. And so I think the status quo that we've had for the last several decades was sufficient to address this issue.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, in theory, you're okay with allowing abortion through all 9 months? I'm just curious.
I don't believe that the government can properly step in and in the nuanced scenarios in which abortion is being considered, a politician should play no role in that decision. It should be, I'm going to put my faith in the medical community to determine, okay, this is a legitimate, a abortion that does not violate the Hippocratic Oath to do no harm. If a doctor views that as within their acceptable practice, I would rather trust them than the government to make that decision, because any restriction, anytime you put it in the hands of the government to make the decision, they're not going to know the nuance. They have to write a law that somehow accounts for all of the very personal, nuanced, situational aspects of, if
short of defining every possible scenario at every possible point of a pregnancy, it becomes an impossible task, I think is what you're trying to say.
Because even if you have an exception for the life of the mother, what percentage risk to the mother's life does that exception kick in? If you're writing it in law, you can't really do, does a doctor need to have 100% certainty, or can they have 20% certainty? Either way, you're still leaving it up to the medical community. I just think the government should have no role whatsoever. It's between the woman and her doctor.
Even though, are you okay with, a woman consents to having sex, she gets pregnant. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want the kid. Mm-hmm. You okay with an abortion at that point?
Right.
I'm just asking.
Me personally, or do I think that the government should step in and tell her what her decision has to be?
As a state senator, what?
Your concept response.
I would not want the government to be telling her that she can't. Now,
okay. I'm just trying to understand.
Because, you can ask questions about, my own personal views on things. And, people do crazy stuff all the time that I personally may not agree with. But I wouldn't want the government stepping in. And so like somebody who, gets face tattoos and looks all crazy, like that's not, I may morally judge that person for better or worse. We should all be less judgmental, but if I were to, I wouldn't want the government stepping in and telling that person they can't get a face tattoo. I mean, there's the difference between what I personally think of whatever situation and what I think the government should be doing on my behalf. And I believe when it comes to abortion, the government should not be stepping in on my behalf and making any decision whatsoever.
Okay. I think I understand where you're coming from. Okay.
Okay. You want to tackle it, John? What's your concept position on abortion in the state of Michigan?
Oh, I believe it's going to be the exact opposite of Jordan's. Again.
Well, let's do it. It's what we're here for.
It's fun that way.
Yeah. And I would allow abortion. I would support bills that would allow abortion in cases of rape and for the health of the mother and limit it to that. Now, as far, you brought up the point, at what stage do we, for the medical, what percentage would you leave that up as a state legislator, which I think is a good question. I would leave that percentage up to the doctor and the mom and dad.
I don't understand.
So, if the doctor believes that a 20% chance of the life of the mother and child, there's a 20% chance that both are going to die, it's not worth the risk. If the doctor's honest with the mom and dad, then they can make the decision, kind of bring up his concerns and stuff to them, and then the decision can be made at that point in time.
But okay, I'm supposed to be general public, and my personal views are going to trickle over on this topic because
that's fine.
Because I'm trying to imagine how you make a law that says you can't do this medical procedure unless your doctor really believes that it's going to risk your life. Don't I then just need a doctor to say those words, kind of like a medical marijuana card?
Yes, but I think that would deter a lot of people from pursuing abortions. Okay. Just because they don't want the child.
Okay.
Do you understand what
I think so. It's a deterrent rule because it becomes a little risky and possibly a pain in the ass, and you'd have to find a doctor who kind of would be a little, I don't know.
I mean, but that as far as the percentages, I would want the medical community, the woman's doctor, to say, hey, this is worrisome. You should consider this.
Okay, so there was another point of confusion, and forgive me if I'm stepping on your points.
No.
It's literally, I'm trying to unpack what you're saying so that the people listening can understand also. If you're going to leave it to the doctor to decide.
Well, the doctor and the parent.
The doctor and the pregnant woman.
Yes.
Are deciding whether or not an abortion is the right medical choice.
Because of the life of the mother.
Because of the life of the mother,
yes.
Sure. How do you decide? What if there's only a 2% chance? I'm going to make something up, and it's been so long since I was ever pregnant. Say she's got gestational diabetes. That is a very real and somewhat common thing.
Or preeclampsia.
Preeclampsia, yes. Those do put the mother's life at risk. But there's a good chance you'll get through it just fine. But there's a slim chance that you could freaking die.
Yeah.
So you would not, it's okay, maybe I am getting this. You're saying there wouldn't be a percentage.
Or as a state legislator, I wouldn't put the percentage on there because as far as what's a reasonable risk, I don't know what that is.
So you're not talking about criminalizing abortions. You are almost saying exactly what Jordan said.
Well,
no?
Okay, so
it's a
yes and no.
It's a charged topic. Carefully unpack it. It's a bomb we're diffusing here.
I mean, my take on what you were saying is that you would almost like, okay, we used to have absentee voting only for those who are older than 65, or if you say you're going to be out of state. on election.
Claim that you're
Yeah.
out of, which I.
And now we have no reason absentee voting where anybody can go and vote absentee. Under mine, it's like no reason absentee. You don't need a reason to acquire an abortion.
Okay.
Under yours, it would be you have to have a doctor giving you that you're going to be out of town on election day excuse.
That's actually
Yes.
a very good analogy. It did it
is.
for me.
It is.
I get it.
is.
Yeah.
And as far as the rape, a police report would do. Like, I went to the police, said I was raped. They concluded I was. That, to me, that's a
So it
reasonable-
requires third-party verification of a rape.
Well,
That's
they
a-
concluded
is rape on our
I
list?
was. The police don't do that.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
You understand what there needs to be at least a police report for
I'm adding
part of
rape
the-
to our list.
that's that's where my standard is.
All right. Can I ask, though, the fundamental, do you view abortion as murder?
Yes.
Okay. I don't. I think that there is a difference between a living baby that has been born and that baby dying versus a fetus or a zygote or an embryo. But part of the hurdles that keep me from fully seeing your side is if it is murder, what's the justification for the rape exception?
Because now I'll use this as an example. If my sister were raped and become impregnated, and she would come to me for advice, I would push her strongly to have the baby. But it's the fact that she didn't consent to having sex. That's why do you understand what I'm saying? It's that consent thing.
But if it's murder, okay, the child is born.
Yeah.
If you don't see a difference between a fetus and a born child,
Right.
can you kill the child after it's born?
No.
And so there is a difference then between preborn and born. If the circumstances around conception should not make a difference if they're the same thing between pre-birth and after birth. That's a logical conundrum that I've never been able to fully understand.
Okay. Yeah. And I agree. As far as I'm concerned, upon conception, it's a life. And like I said, the only thing I can go on is, did the woman consent? Because she must have a choice. If she consents to doing the activity, then that is her consent to becoming pregnant.
So agreeing to have sex is agreeing to become pregnant.
Is taking upon that.
So hold on. So let's put this on the man's side because we're all talking about women's rights. What about men's rights and responsibilities? Because you and I go have sex somewhere, you're consenting to being a dad.
Yes.
So
Yes, and I need to be responsible.
Where's that enforceability? How is that tackled?
I would need to either be an involved dad or at very least.
How do you regulate that? I know it's tricky.
I don't know, to be honest. Yeah. But that's something that needs to be figured out. Because we all know deadbeat dads, I'm sure. I know some
Deadbeat moms and dads.
Yeah.
It runs both ways.
Okay, so how do we get them to support their kids? It's that same sort of thing. So it's not, so you're tackling multiple things with regulating them, and that's a hard, how do you get them to do that? Mm-hmm. And
in the interest of full transparency, I will make a statement that some people will disagree with. I believe that the fathers should have the opportunity during pregnancy to abort their parental responsibilities, whether it's financial or whatever.
Much like the similar right of a woman
Yes.
in a state that does allow abortion.
Because she has she should have 100% control rather than him in terms of whether or not she wants to choose an abortion. He doesn't get a say in that. He can, he can voice his opinion, but he can't block it. He can't tell her what to do.
And he can be put on the hook for child support, in a scenario where he wanted the abortion. Right. I'm doing air quotes.
And that's where I would want the fathers to have the opportunity, if for nothing else. I mean, parents put their children up for adoption and absolve themselves of financial responsibility. Mm-hmm. I do believe, I would morally judge the men who do that, who don't financially support their children.
Get you a gavel.
But I think the law should allow them to do so, even though I morally, would view it as a bad thing for them to choose that.
Okay, so from a 22nd district in Michigan standpoint, like action items, is this a front runner for either of you? Is there anything to be done at that level other than
the 1931 law? That really is the crux. Either
for
we
our
have
state,
that law still on the books, or we overturn it, or hopefully the ballot measure passes. I mean, I'm going to be voting in favor of the ballot measure. When I'm a state senator, I'm going to be voting to take that 1931 law off the books, even if the ballot measure passes, because that law is severely flawed in a multitude of ways. Because, I mean, even you recognize, it doesn't have exceptions that you would like to see.
Right.
That law is a problem.
Yes. I mean, that's something that we can agree on. I mean, at the very least, I would rework the 1931 law to have
incorporate some.
Yes.
Yeah. The tough thing about this topic I'm noticing is the logic tracks both ways.
Yes.
So it comes down to, drawing your wiggly lines again.
Yes.
So good job navigating that minefield, both of you.
And I'm not saying that, where I stand, I understand that there's going to be, assuming I win, I understand that there's going to be a lot of other people like Jordan. So will I get everything that I want? Probably not, but I'd have to be willing to at least negotiate to that point where I get some of what I want. And I would be willing to do that in order to get some of what I want.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, we could stay on this topic. But we're not gonna. We can come back to it because, I mean, there's just so much in there.
I mean, I'm willing to talk forever on anything.
Yeah,
so.
well,
and I'm more of a listener.
Okay, so here's what prompted that comment out of my mouth. I'm thinking, what would you say to the woman who feels like she was stripped of rights that she had? Like, what do you say to the person standing right in front of you saying, like, I'm trying to think of an analogy that works for a man. Like if somebody came to you and said, like the face tattoos, but what if it's, you can't circumcise your sons anymore because we believe that is genital mutilation. Well, how do you say that? How do you respond to someone who had the right to do something and it got taken away? It's just such a hard bell to unring.
Oh, you have a choice. And if you want to have sex, there's many things that you can do to help prevent a pregnancy.
But none of them are 100%. So there's
and
always.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to pose a hypothetical because it exists.
Yes. Okay.
A boyfriend, girlfriend, they're having sex consensually.
Yes.
He removes the condom without her consent, stealths her. Is that rape enough to qualify for your exemption? And I pose that only because as an example of how nuanced pregnancy can be in the circumstances that lead up to it, and then the circumstances that occur with potential birth defects and all that as well. You can try to legislate, but when you get into the specific examples of real life, it's
you can be a circumcised man and your shit grows back together and you get your 42-year-old wife pregnant.
Yes.
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 Those things happen.
Yes.
We're out into the weeds here, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah, are those types of things covered in your?
I would say so because she didn't consent to having sex with a.
But it's not likely to have a rape report file because
It's her boyfriend,
and,
possible fiance.
And I mean,
Interesting.
she consented to sex. Yeah, she didn't consent to that. It's real. The odds of a woman in that situation going to the police to say that, yeah, he stealthed her and raped her in that way, the likelihood of getting a conviction is very, very
I never
slim.
said anything about
No. I know.
Right, just the
But-
report of
Yeah,
right.
some third-party verification that a thing happened is what you're looking for, yes?
Yes.
But if the woman cannot trust that the justice system is going to provide justice for that crime of rape, is she really likely to come forth with the accusation and do the steps when it's all for naught? Just so in case she got pregnant, then she can, have it on record in order to obtain an abortion.
Well,
And I've got,
as far as I'm concerned, with the reporting the rape and the abortion.
should turn so the camera
sorry.
can get you too. That's okay. It'll look better on YouTube.
As far as I'm concerned, the report can happen after
After the event.
after the event. So, she finds out she's pregnant, wants to abort the baby. Hey, look, this is, go to your teacher. Hey, this is what happened. The third
You've
party
clearly never been a teenage girl.
You don't say.
Well, I mean, then it does definitely go back to the absentee voting analogy of you just fill in the bubble saying that you're going to be out of town and therefore you qualify to vote absentee.
It almost becomes like a tracking of reasons people give to get abortions more than anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to pose a similar question to you, though, Jordan. So,
Yes.
what do you say to the man whose wife got pregnant and got an abortion that he didn't want her to have, and he was trying to have that baby, and they were having consensual sex, and he feels she murdered that child?
And I sympathize with him for sure. And absolutely, he can feel whatever moral judgments against her that he feels. It's just a question of, is that a situation in which we need to insert the government?
Right.
And I don't see a way to insert the government there in a way that doesn't have horrific outcomes in a multitude of other scenarios.
Cost benefit analysis of sorts.
Yeah.
Almost like saying by having unprotected sex, he knew going in that he risked her having an abortion if she got pregnant. Other side of the coin, does that track?
Yeah. I understand. Yeah.
And I mean, you just have the simple fundamental concept of bodily autonomy, and whether or not you can be forced to donate blood or an organ, or you have the right to your own body. Your spouse may want you to be an organ donor, and you say no. Yeah, they can be mad at you, but it's your body. And when you die, if you didn't check the box that you're an organ donor, even if your spouse wanted to donate your organs, you didn't consent to it, they're not going to do that under most circumstances.
Right.
Okay.